Funny enough, I don't remember this, but my friends from high school in Boston, because I went to school in Boston in Germany, I'm a military brat, and at one of our reunions, they were like, "You're the only person we know that said they wanted to be a reporter, and they're doing what they said they were going to do." I don't even remember saying that. I just kind of knew this is what I want to do. I think it was difficult. I started a little bit over 20 years ago. I was doing radio at KXTN. Then I did work at KTFM for a little while. I worked at Kono. So those were the ways that I was able to make extra money, you know, as a college student, a poor college student, you know, knowing what I wanted to do. I did intern at another station here in town, and it was that internship that really opened up my eyes. A lot of those people recently had a mass retirement, and those were my mentors, you know, back then. And that love for journalism, I mean, that's when you really learn. The internships, the way they used to be, they would let you be there all day. So I would get there at 6 o'clock in the morning because I knew I would get a good photographer and be out on the streets all day. And then I would write for the 6, I would write for the 10, you know, and start all over again the next day. So my days were full of weekends just being there because I loved it so much. And I think that's when you really learn that it has to be a calling. If you want to be good at what you do, it has to be a calling. It has to be a passion, you know, and you really have to fight for it. And at this age and this further into my career, the last 2 years, I almost got out of the business because of somebody else's mindset of what this business is about. And I'm glad that I stopped myself and I thought about it. And to me, it would be like giving up one of my kids. This has been my true love, the time that I've spent away from my family. This is it. And it has purpose and it has meaning. And it does matter what we do. When you don't have a free media that can tell you and show you what's going on, we run the risk of going back to what happened in Germany. And that's why it's important what we do. And that's why I get upset when I hear sometimes people putting down journalists. No one will ever know. I worked until midnight the day before I had my daughter. I was in at a C-section at 6 a.m. I worked until midnight. I got home, packed a bag, slept 2 hours, and went to the hospital because I wanted to make sure I had left enough behind. So while I was on maternity leave, my face would still be there. People would still see me and not think that I left. Those are the things that people don't see. It's a true commitment. It is a true commitment. And let me tell you, the money's not as good as people think it is. I know that I could leave here and probably be making double the money, but there's only so many people that can do what we do and do it good and do it for the amount of time that I've been doing it. Oh my God. 1996, I got my first job at Telemundo, and I used to produce and report for the same show. So I would do my whole rundown and then run out to go get my story and then come back and see what the anchors wrote, move stuff around if I needed to, write my story, leave it for them to edit and go booth my show. Talk about a crazy day. And maybe I'm a little hard, I'm a little hard sometimes on the younger people coming in, but it's just because I see where we came from. And by the way, we had to back time ourselves. We didn't have a damn computer that was back timing. You got to be out in 1 minute from your show. Oh, hell no. I'm doing math. I'm a journalist. I don't like math, but I got really good at that math. So what we had to do back then, the difficulties were different. But you add in now social media. Now, not only do you have to get the story out on air, but you also have to do your social media. You have to do Facebook. You have to do web. You have to update. They want you live while you're there. How am I going to be live doing an interview? It's a lot. It is a lot. So they have different challenges. I think the most memorable stories that I probably covered are the ones that involve the missing. Patty Vaughn, first year as a reporter in San Antonio, I started with that story on Christmas Day. Her body has yet to be found. From there, I would say the next one would be baby Gabriel. I mean, he's been gone as long as my son's been alive. That one's been very hard. And keeping up with these families. So it's not I do a story and I'm done and that's it. You know, Patty Vaughn's family I've known for over 25 years. Gabriel's family, you know, over 14 years. So it's the constant relationship with those families because they need an advocate. At the beginning, for many of them, it's very difficult. And I think it's the communication also with law enforcement is difficult. And as time goes by, more cases happen. They're looking for other people. And there's that sense of, is anyone really looking for my loved one? So that's where we come in and we fill that gap and continue the stories because it is a live human being that all of a sudden just vanished. I think it's just the simple fact that it's families. This is their loved one and they're simply gone. You know, especially with the children, those are difficult ones because they're so little. Baby Gabriel wasn't even a year old when he disappeared. So if they're dead, they deserve proper burial. And if they're not, they're somewhere out there. At some point, they deserve to know the history of who they are. Chapter 1, as Brian Sanchez, my old photographer, used to call it. Everyone deserves to know their chapter 1. And everybody sees the stories that I do at the border. I think for me personally, what drives me batty insane is when we're at the border and we're covering it. I've covered the border over 20 years. And when people come in and all of a sudden I know the border and you know, they spin these stories out of control. Like right now, we just did a story about what's really going on at the border. The numbers aren't that high. They're getting anywhere between 200 and 300 people a day. That is low compared to what it was before. Compared to 2021, we're at half of the numbers year to date. So in 2021, we had over 200,000 people. Right now, we're at about 109,000 people. So the spinning of the border, it just drives me crazy. The other thing that really gets to me, it's the fact that most people will never even step on the U.S.-Mexico border. Most people will never see how beautiful Sanderson is, how beautiful it is in Eagle Pass when the cenizo comes down and it's just fields of lilacs and pinks. We want to talk about this horrible place and how people are coming in, but there is beauty in that place, and there's families that live binationally. There are U.S. citizens that choose to live in Mexico and drive back every day because it is cheaper to live in Mexico, so they can give their family a better lifestyle. So I think the perceptions and the negative connotations of the border just need to be done away with. Until you go somewhere, how can you truly judge? And that's, for me, what I try to do is to bring the border to people that will probably never be at the border, that will probably never taste a taco from Azulejos or a chicken fried steak from the wagon wheel or ever see the sun setting standing over a hill looking at the Rio Grande. So that's what I try to do. It's the Healing Hearts Phone Bank. It started out as a gala. And it was Karen Martinez. She was diagnosed with cancer. She was our main anchor and one of my best friends here at the station. And I remember her coming in like maybe 2 weeks after the diagnosis saying, I want to do a gala and raise money for this organization called Thrival Cancer Foundation. I was like, are you crazy? You're doing chemo, when are we going to do this? Oh, you're helping me, by the way. So I was like, okay, I got dragged into it. And I mean, you know, cancer is one of those things that I'm passionate about because my mom died of ovarian cancer at 59. So I'm passionate about trying to help. So we started it there. We did the gala the first year. Second year, I had to walk into the hotel by myself because Karen was in the hospital. We didn't think she was going to make it out. And I remember that feeling of walking into the St. Anthony Hotel and just going, oh my God, I have to put this whole thing on today by myself. And it was the feeling of all our friends being there and helping me out. It was a lot. And one of her last wishes before she passed away a few weeks later was me walking in to her house. She's laid on her hospital bed in her living room, and she goes, "Honey, you look tired. You really need to take care of yourself." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm tired." "Well, by the way, I need you to take this over when I pass away. You're gonna have to keep this going." I'm like, "Didn't you just tell me I need to rest? And now you're gonna have me do this?" So it was kind of funny, but when somebody asks you to do something and they're dying, how do you break that promise? There is no breaking that promise. I mean, seriously. So we started the phone bank, and the phone bank continued throughout COVID. 13 years later, and more than $1.5 million, we're still raising money. And I think Karen had a vision that maybe she didn't share with the rest of us, but now I know what the vision was. The vision was to make ThriveWell a name that people knew the minute that you speak about cancer. This year alone, they are all over the place. I mean, paint the town pink, the pink party, the pink walk, the pink la la la, and it's all ThriveWell. And we're so happy that we were able to do this for them, because when we first started doing all of this, Karen's brainstorming idea of, let's do this for ThriveWell, their name wasn't out there like it is today. And that is all Karen. That is all Karen. The amount of people that we're able to help, and I'm very passionate, and I get worked up on stuff, and pretty much what you see is what you get. I'm feisty. I am spicy. I'll admit it. But this is something that I feel so strongly about. And I think the longer that we keep doing it, the more my coworkers realize that when I say, by the grace of God, we all go, I mean it. We have people in this newsroom whose family members are fighting cancer. That ThriveWell has helped. We have people themselves who are workers that are going through cancer. That ThriveWell has been there and stepped up. And it's that sense of community. And if we're supposed to be part of the community, this is part of what we do as a company. We come back together and we do the phone bank. And, I'll get in a fight with anybody who tells me, well, do we really? No, we're doing it. We're doing it. Whether we do it here or I have to stand outside on 410 and, with a boot and start collecting money, I'm going to continue doing this. I'm very passionate about ThriveWell. And the other thing, and I started it, but, I stepped back when I left here, is helping children who are going through transplants and people. And recently I had the opportunity to help a little girl and met up again with Dr. Cigarroa, who's the head of transplants over at University, children and adults. And just to see in 20 some years where they're at now, it's just amazing. It's amazing. It makes you feel good. It's part of the legacy that I want to leave behind. I wasn't just on TV. I also am part of this community and helping out the community. Let's pick a Karen story. Karen was a party girl. Karen was a party girl. She loved to party, loved to socialize. I think some of my favorite stories about Karen was just her calling Ernie Bunny. Bunny, how are you, Bunny? She would come in with this accent and we're all looking at her like, what are you doing? And she'd walk away, just laugh. I mean, she was just so full of energy, so full of life, wanted to have fun, was a hard worker. Her kids meant everything to her. The entire world was her children. And I think a lot of people, there's a video, and I'm going to have to find it for you. She was doing, I think it was Focus, and she went to stand up, and it was like a kitchen thing, I don't know. She went to stand up, and she stood there, and all of a sudden, she falls behind. And I know we still have that video because we use it sometimes. But she falls over, and she goes, oh, no. Oh, no, that wasn't me. That was and she's just laughing at herself. I think that's another thing, is just her ability to laugh at herself. She loved the martini ball every year. So that was a must. I remember we were getting an award. I think it was the Associated Press Award in Austin. And we were going to be heading to Austin. And she was adamant that we had to stop at La Villita to go to the martini ball. because she wanted to have drinks, with her friends. So it was Brian and myself. We stopped at the Martini Ball, and then we kept going to Austin to go collect our awards. But it was like, no, you have to come to the Martini Ball. It is the party of the year. So it was just that zest for life that Karen had. With a lot of these big stories, what I normally do, if they don't need me to go out there right away, I'm sitting in the background. You're not going to see me reporting, but I'm calling all my sources and I'm getting the information that I need. On Sutherland Springs, I remember that day getting Ari Jimenez, who was still with Homeland Security Investigations, and him just telling me how horrific it was. I think they all kind of tied together. Sutherland Springs, Uvalde. I mean, it's the call, getting the confirmation from sources. When Uvalde first happened, I remember I was getting my hair done, and then I had to come in to record that day, and I got a call from a friend with the FBI and was like, you need to get going, where are you? And I said, well, I'm getting my hair done. Well, you need to get going. We have at least 7 to 8 kids dead in Uvalde. It's not a joke. I was like, what? Yeah, we think we're gonna have more. And it was trying to hurry up, but calling sources to get as much information as I could for the crews that were already here that were heading in. With that one, I think the hardest part of it, more so than others, is the fact that I was able to get a lot of the body cam video and a lot of the documents a year ago before everybody else did, and it wasn't redacted. So I have seen everything that investigators have seen without the blurring. I think that's part of the reason that we keep doing this, because unless you see that, you don't fully understand. You see parents grieving, you see some of it, you hear it, but you don't have a clear picture of what happened there unless you've really seen it. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're so committed to this, because we still see that a lot of things haven't been done by the state and haven't been done by Uvalde to protect their children. But what about the rest of the kids? Kid going off to homecoming, I'm over here telling him, remember, if there's a shooting, don't run straight, get out as soon as you can, shut the ringer off so they can't hear you where you're at, and just run out. Just run. Make sure no one's there and you run like hell. That's sad to me. My parents never told me. My parents were like, don't be drinking, you're underage. That doesn't even cross my mind. I'm more worried about a school shooting at a homecoming. And it's because of that knowledge that we have. We have so much knowledge on what happened there, we haven't even done half of it. The fact that there's still pre-Columbine locks on doors in schools in Uvalde, that to me is mind-boggling. The fact that I've gone to schools here in San Antonio and the doors propped open by parents, I'm looking at them like, what are you doing? So it still hasn't gotten into our head. 19 kids and their 2 teachers dead. And it still hasn't become, brain muscle memory in there that we have to close the door, that we have to do this, that we have to go to training. Look at all the stories that, Jordan's been doing. People still aren't fully trained in Uvalde. So that's our job as the media, is to keep reminding people, hey, this happened and we're still not up to par. We don't want it to happen to anybody else. September 11th, I was in Milwaukee. Oh my gosh, typical Yami story in Milwaukee. That was before kids. So we had all gone out. It was our 6 o'clock producer's last day. She was gonna start down in Chicago. We had all gone out, and I lived overlooking Lake Michigan. That producer lived 2 buildings down. Another reporter, we all live right around there. And I remember getting the call from Courtney. Courtney's now at NBC in New York. And Courtney was like, get up, they just bombed us. And I go, what? We had been out the night before. It was a long night. I mean, I didn't go to bed till 4 in the morning. So to get that call, I was like, what are you talking about? Turn the news on. And right when I turned on, I think's when the second tower was hit. And then I started calling the rest of them, and we're all like, what's going on? Because, I mean, I wasn't scheduled to come in till 11 that day. So I was like, what is going on? And just that sense of lost. Everybody was lost. Nobody knew. Everybody was scared, you know. And I remember working that whole day. And I think it was the next day that they had a vigil. Everybody came out, and we lived overlooking Lake Michigan. And I remember seeing all these people just coming out, you know, with their candles. And I remember just thinking, my God, are we ever going to go back to normal? And I remember a year before that, I want to say it was a year or 2 years before that, being in the World Trade Centers. I was in New York City for my best friend's bachelorette party, and they wanted to go shopping. We had taken the subway, and we were underneath walking around. And I remember telling them, I don't like it in here. Can we like hurry up and get out and go where we're going? I didn't feel comfortable being underneath. And I remember all those things coming back to me, you know, on September 11th. Are we ever going to be the same? And then 2020 comes along. Talk about, are we ever going to be the same again? And it was deja vu all over again, but a different way. And as a journalist, to me, I was watching what was going on in China. I was watching what was going on in Italy. So when it started moving over, I was like, So about a week before we got locked down, I went and I bought the medicines that, you know, I knew that they were reporting over there were helping. I went and bought medicines. I went and bought extra food. I mean, I have kids. I gotta, you know, and knowing how this job is. I mean, we had groups. You had a group A, B, C, and it was the anchor, producer, you know, photographer, reporter. So if one group got sick, the next one's to go in. I'm like, who the hell's going to take care of my kids, you know, if we're doing that? So that was are we ever going to get back to normal again? That was the second time after September 11th. And, you know, adamant, I wanted to stay here as long as I could. I don't want to go home. I can stay here. I can do this. I can do this. And then it came down to, okay, we need to go home. You got to be responsible. I also have kids. You got to be responsible. And the stories, just trying to get information from the city and the county, and how ridiculous it was to have to fight them for information that should be free to the public at the beginning. And then everybody started getting on the same page. It was scary. It was a scary thing. And having that extra knowledge of watching it happen, like a domino effect, going from China and moving all the way over, you know? To me, in my head, I still think that I had COVID when it first started, because I used to fly home to Panama. I would go to Houston and take a flight on Air China that would come straight from Beijing. So that flight would stop in Houston, and then we'd go there. And I remember I got really, really, really sick. And I was sick probably for about a month and a half. I mean, the respiration, when they did it, it was down to 88%. Yeah. So my doctor was like, what is going on? I don't know. And then I got better after a while. But in my head, I still think that I had COVID at the beginning. But, you know, you never know. So it's just that, are we ever going to get back to normal again? And I think that's part of the job of the news. People get angry sometimes saying, oh, you're scaring people. No, we're not scaring you. We're giving you the information, and you decide what to do with it. You know, if we're telling you this is what we found, go do your own homework now and see if that's right for you and your family. Do I want to do this? Do I want to wear a mask? Do I want to not go to school? Do I want to not go to the gym? My job is just to give you information. I don't make up your mind. That's why you have a mind. You decide what you're going to do with the information that we give you. I covered Winter Storm, but from home. I was at home. There was no way to, yeah. Where I live, yeah, good luck on that. I went sliding down my driveway. My best friend had gotten out to get water, and she lives about a mile away, and she said, I remember driving, and we had managed to get water, and my daughter and I are driving, and they can see from the road. And she said, oh, look, it's Tia Yami. And next thing we see is you whoosh, and you slid down the hill. Yeah, I went sliding down the hill. So it was like, okay, great. How am I going to get out of here? The reporting was challenging, you know, with no power on, and then having to go in the car, charge things up, try to warm up, and the same like everybody else did. Stories were coming in. There were some people that still came in that lived closer to town. I remember giving a story to Emily Baucom, you know, on people, elderly people that were in one of the high rises and how they had no power, they had no water, and just what came out of it. The job that she did on the story was amazing. She got nominated, I think it was for an Emmy for that story. So sometimes you may not see me, but it's because I've been here so long that people call me and they'll give me the stories or give me what I need. And I can't do all of them, so I spread the wealth and give it to the other reporters. But the winter storm was also different because now it affected, again, everybody. And you just could not believe, are we really going through this? Why are we going through this? This day and age, and we have no power and no water, are you kidding me? And then came all the stories after that. How prepared were we? That's what we're supposed to do. Most people don't have the time to be digging all day to figure out, are we prepared? That's what we do. What haven't I talked about? Well, interviewing a sicario, that was interesting. That was very interesting. I was able to ride with the state police in Juarez, and we rode in when they were serving the warrant. They arrested him. We got to take him back, and he agreed to do my interview. And yeah, just the back and forth. How did you get started? Well, had an alcoholic dad. Family had no food. The cartel was there, and they offered him money that he could help his family out. He killed his first person when he was 14 years old, you know, and he cried during the interview when I asked him about his newborn baby girl, whom he was probably never going to see again, and no one there to protect her. And that made him cry. I mean, it was like, wow, okay, he's a human being. Riding with SAPD, I was embedded with a gang unit for about 3 months. And that's the value that doing some of these things have. If you spend the time with law enforcement, they learn who you are, you learn who they are, you understand why they do what they do. And years later, I mean, I still have a lot of people that I consider friends that we rode with back then at the San Antonio Police Department. Same can be said for the U.S. Marshals. Same can be said for the Bexar County Sheriff's Office. We've gone out with FAU. We have the On the Run, and FAU were the guys that would go pick them up. And then Marshals Most Wanted was from working with the U.S. Marshals. So all of these relationships over the years have just turned into things that I think help the community, and the community is interested in. You know, they want to know if there's a fugitive out there. They want to call and say, hey, come pick him up. I don't want him next door. So this is a call to action for people to get involved in our community.
Thank you for watching. Click the like and subscribe button to get all your latest headlines right here at Fox SA.